Hello, and welcome to the Empowered Wife podcast, where it's all about fixing your relationship without your man's conscious effort so you feel desired and taken care of and special, even if your relationship feels completely hopeless. I'm Laura Doyle, and today we're talking about how to work on your relationship when your husband refuses. I'm going to reveal how to single-handedly create the kind of connection and intimacy you're craving. My guest Debbie's husband shocked her when he announced that he wanted a divorce, and then he wouldn't speak to her or touch her. She was blindsided and heartbroken, but she not only attracted him back, she created exactly the kind of relationship she envisioned. She's going to share exactly what steps she took to do that. And then I'll be giving out the award for the worst relationship advice of the week, which seems so logical, it's hard to even question, but it will just leave you stuck and hopeless. All that is coming up, but first, let's talk about how to work on your relationship and create the connection you're craving when your husband refuses. Some men go to marriage counseling willingly, but most who go do so grudgingly, and still more flat out refuse to go at all. They won't read a book about relationships, and they don't seem interested in talking about the problems either. It can be incredibly frustrating for a wife who knows that her marriage isn't what it could be. After all, if he's not going to work on things, isn't it hopeless that they'll ever improve? And that's what I used to think, which is why I dragged my husband to marriage counseling. But what if there's a faster, more effective way to get what you really want from him, like spontaneous love pats and deep, heartfelt talks and romantic getaways? Then you can implement it yourself. I'll tell you why his stubbornness not working on the relationship is actually a blessing in disguise, and how you can get those swoon-worthy encounters without him even knowing what you're up to. I know it may sound impossible that you could make your relationship gratifying and delightful again, and I get that the person who needs to change the most is him, and he will. You can make that happen. All you have to do is do what you did when you fell in love. Remember those glory days? You stayed up too late talking, and you were still smiling the next day. And you laughed a lot. In fact, let's be honest, you were a little goofy then. But nobody minded because it was really kind of adorable. And he couldn't get enough of you back then. Those were good times. But then life got serious. You're older now. You have responsibilities, and there just hasn't been as much time for giddiness. Between your job, your bills, kids, housework, you're strong. So you bucked up and did what needed to be done, but you haven't been smiling as much. In fact, no disrespect, but you've been a little cross lately. In other words, you've changed. It's almost like you're a different person. Yeah, you're productive and efficient and smart. But what happened to the goddess of fun and light? The one your husband fell in love with? What's that? You don't even remember her? Well, that explains a lot about why you've been so serious lately and why your marriage is not as playful and passionate as it once was. I mean, you're not like you used to be. When you changed, your husband started responding to you differently. He took his cues from you and got more businesslike too. So there was less playing and fewer butt pats. And that's not all. It also seemed like he just wasn't being cooperative when you told him how to be more efficient and logical, too. But there's more to the story. He misses the goddess of fun and light, the one who used to take a running jump to hug him and engage in the occasional pillow fight or skinny dip. You were flirty and quick to laugh then, and that version of you was so inspiring. You made him feel like a hero in those days because you were so happy. But really, you were making yourself happy. So, how can you be the goddess of fun and light again? Well, find the fun in the situation you're in. If you're at a movie on opening night and the line is around the block, you can see it as an adventure and an opportunity to talk to him instead of lamenting about the long wait. If you accidentally squirt yourself with the faucet, you can laugh at yourself and say, that was a good one, instead of having a meltdown. The goddess of fun and light expresses her desires, and she's gracious. For instance, if you were cold or hungry or tired or you wanted a break, you'd speak up in a direct way without criticizing your husband's choices or judgment or his sense of fun. So you'd say, I'd love to warm up, instead of, don't you think it's just a tad ridiculous to be outside in this weather? Or, it's getting awfully late to eat dinner becomes, I would love to eat. See the difference? The first phrase criticizes his judgment, while the second just states what would make you happy. Instead of saying, this is boring, or I've done this before, or this food is awful, find the entertainment and your desire and express that. Try that even if, especially if, you're in a bad place. I mean, what about the difficulties with in-laws or finances or sex? What about the separation or the affair or the pending divorce? You might argue there's nothing fun about that. Well, it may seem crazy to you right now, but finding the fun and making yourself happy is where it all starts to get better. That's how it started for me and for thousands of women all over the world who revitalized their broken relationships. First, we made ourselves happy. You hear my guests talk about that almost every week, right? And then our husbands found us attractive and fun and safe, just like we were in the beginning. They find us irresistible. They seek out our company. They start bringing us chocolate and putting the kids to bed so we could relax. In other words, he changed. And from there, things fell into place. The impossible became possible. We remembered why we fell in love in the first place. And you will too, just as soon as you decide to be happy. If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. Debbie's husband shocked her when he announced that he wanted a divorce and then wouldn't speak to her or touch her. She was blindsided and heartbroken, but she not only attracted him back, she created exactly the kind of relationship she envisioned. She's going to share exactly what steps she took to do that. Debbie, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so take us back to the bad old days. You were having some conflict in your relationship over trying to get things repaired. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I felt like we had this ongoing issue where I wanted to get projects done. I wanted to get the maintenance done on the house. I was really frustrated because I thought maybe he was very busy, very, very busy. And I didn't think that he was prioritizing right. And I wanted the things that I thought needed to be done. I wanted those things to get done, and I thought they should be done first. And I would make him lists for how to prioritize the stuff. I would try to suggest that if his schedule was too busy, that we should try and hire somebody, but he was really not interested in hiring anybody. And I just didn't understand this. And we would go around and around, and he was really angry, really just like mad at me if I ever even suggested that we were to hire some help to get something done. And I just couldn't understand this because I thought, well, if you can't do it yourself, you would hire somebody, because it needs to be done.
Right. Yeah, you guys were in a kitchen remodeling project.
We were. We're in the middle of a kitchen remodeling project. And at the beginning, I was kind of worried because he said he wanted to install it himself. And he told me it would take 2 weeks for him to install it. And after, it just seemed like it was taking forever. And there was always something else that he would choose to do instead. He'd go off and play on a sports team. He played ice hockey and he was doing that. Or he would spend extra time at work. He was just like spending hours and hours at work and hours playing hockey. And I just didn't know, well, I don't have a kitchen. How can I function? This is impossible. I cannot even get myself to work. I can't function,
No, definitely not. And you had gone like 5 months without even a kitchen sink at one point.
Yes, that's right. And in fact, we went to a dinner with his staff, and somebody had asked me how the kitchen remodel was going. And I said, well, we're in our 5th month without a sink. And I just left it at that. And I was just so tired of not having a kitchen that was functional. Yeah. It was just awful. And I just didn't know how I could go on.
No, I know. I mean, I think this is a really common pain point in a lot of homes where you want something fixed and he won't fix it. But in your case, he was also saying no one else can fix it, and you didn't know why. He
That's
was
right. Yeah.
so it's kind of an impossible setup for you. You should just suffer with no
Hmm.
sink and things that break.
And the garbage was kind of similar because he didn't want me to do the garbage and put it out every week, and yet he would often forget. And every week I would be like, is he going to do the garbage? No. And he would go to bed and the garbage wasn't done. And I thought, I cannot rely on this guy for anything. He can't do the simplest of tasks and get it accomplished. How could he possibly remodel the kitchen? Can't even put the garbage out.
Right? Right? Yeah. Super frustrating. So you guys were limping along with these conflicts about the repairs, but basically the rest of the marriage was okay, it sounds like.
I didn't realize that there was a problem. I mean, I would understand that every once in a while he would tell me that I didn't trust him, and he would tell me that that I wasn't very nice, and he would tell
Ouch.
me a bunch of things that just didn't make any sense. And he didn't think that I loved him, and all of these things, and I didn't understand that at all because I thought he was talking about he said I didn't trust him. I thought he was talking about marital infidelity, and when I asked him that, he said no, that he was like, in fact, he was just like exasperated with me. No, it's not about that. It's like, you don't trust me. And I didn't have any idea what he was talking about. And it was like we were speaking different languages. It was very frustrating for me because I didn't know what he was talking about.
So what did you try to do to fix the marriage?
I went to marriage counseling, and I was advised to read a book on boundaries and learned about setting a boundary and a time limit for getting things done that needed to get done because things have to get done, and to hold him accountable. And if he didn't do it, then follow through on the consequences.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, the next time something comes up, I am going to follow these instructions, and that will save my marriage.
Okay. Okay. So what happened?
Well, pretty soon after that, the sump pump started making a really bad noise under the house. And it just really bothered me. I thought something is really, really wrong with this. And this is very serious. And we were in the middle of the rainy season. And we'd had before where our sump pump went out and all of the heating vents filled up with water. And it was a really big issue. I mean, you could look in the heating vent and you could see the water down there. And so I thought, well, if this sump pump is broken, this is a top priority. This needs to be fixed right away. And he said that he would fix it for me. And I gave him 24 hours to address the issue. And I came home and it wasn't addressed. And I said I was going to be calling the plumber. And he was pretty mad because he said he was really busy and he didn't have time to deal with it. And I thought, well, then I have to call a plumber. This has to be taken care of before the rains come back. We had this brief, dry spell. And once the under the house fills up with water, nobody can get under there to fix it. It needed to be fixed now. I'm like, this needs to be fixed now.
Yes,
So I
sounds
called the
urgent.
plumber and I had him come out. And then while he was here, I had him also fix the hot and the cold water in the shower because the hot was cold and the cold was hot, and it was just confusing. I had them fix the faucets, and I had them fix under the shower so that was up to code. So while they were under, I just had them deal with all the plumbing issues, and I thought this is great because I had them do it all in one day. My husband was not inconvenienced, and I had stayed home and worked from home that day so that he would not have to deal with it at all, and it could just get done, and then it wouldn't be a problem. So
So
I
you're
thought,
kind of doing him a favor, really.
I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought, of course, I'm doing him a favor. He doesn't have to deal with it. I can take care of it because he's so busy and the things are really important to him. And I understood that all those things were important to him. And I didn't think that me needing to have, and also one other thing about the sump pump was it was making this horrible noise. And so we would turn off the power to that part of the house. Well, that part of the house had all of our internet and phone connected to it. And so when we turned off the power to the sump pump, we had no power in that part of the house, no lights. And it was in the middle of winter. We had no internet and we had no phone other than a cell phone, which didn't work in the house. So it was so frustrating. I can't tell you how frustrating that was. I was just like, this is an impossible situation.
It's impossible.
I have to deal with the sump pump.
It's so unreasonable, right? That he's not making this a priority and also not letting you take care of it. I mean, you did take care of it, but he was
really mad, really angry about it. Yeah.
And this was also part of your boundaries work, right? Because you said he had 24 hours. He didn't do it in 24 hours. So this was the consequence of the boundary. Is that right? Or
so I called the plumber. Yep.
Okay. So you got it all taken care of. And then his reaction was?
Well, I was just really happy and feeling really great about myself because I took care of it all. And I thought I was such a competent wife and I thought I was wonderful. And he came home earlier than usual that night. It was before I had gone to bed. So I was still awake when he got home and he looked so great. He had his tie on and because he'd been to give a speech somewhere, and he looked great. He had on his jacket and his tie and he's taken off his tie. And I'm just so happy because he's home before I fell asleep. And he says to me, I think we should end the marriage. And I was just flabbergasted. This just caught me out from left field. I thought I was I thought, what did I do? I hired a plumber. Why would this happen? Why does this make no sense to me? No sense to me whatsoever. I saved the day. Yeah. I fixed our sump pump,
Crazy.
So I was really, really just confused and I couldn't even function. I couldn't even hardly speak. I just didn't know what to say. And he was serious about it. And I thought, well, maybe he just had a bad day. It'll blow over. And I thought maybe tomorrow he'll just be okay. But, it went on for days and it went on for weeks. And he didn't want me to sleep in the bed with him. He didn't want me to touch him. He didn't want to talk to me. He started always being gone before I would wake up. And he would never be back home until after I was asleep. I didn't get to talk to him at all. I would send him text messages. I didn't get any response from anything. A lot of times I didn't know if he was alive or dead, except for that I had evidence that he'd been home. And I did not, there certainly was no intimacy, nothing. And I thought, this is not a marriage and I don't know what to do. There's something seriously wrong. This is a crisis. And I was so lonely. I really missed him. I thought I'd done everything right and I didn't know what else to do. I was really, really not able to function at work. I wasn't able to concentrate. I didn't want to tell anybody because I was embarrassed because he told me I wasn't attractive and that was just so I didn't understand that. I didn't understand anything that was going on in my life.
Yeah, because who gets divorced because you called a plumber to make an emergency repair?
Yeah.
So there's no contact with him. Like you're texting, but he's not responding. There's no interaction. There's no intimacy, and you don't even see him. It sounds like. How long could that go on?
I'm thinking 2 or 3 months. It was very difficult. Very difficult.
So did you feel pretty hopeless that this was going to?
I did. I didn't know. There were days, I really believed in marriage. I really didn't. I really loved him. And I thought, this is just a big misunderstanding. There's something that he doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that I love him. And he was pretty convinced that I didn't love him. And I didn't understand why he would think I didn't love him. And so I thought, I can't just, I don't agree with the divorce and I do love him. And this is just something that I don't understand. And I did a Google search for why my husband doesn't find me attractive and why doesn't he want to have sex with me? And I was up came a Laura Doyle thing, and I read your book, and I started reading your book, The Empowered Wife, and I started to understand what was going on. For the first time ever in like 17 years of marriage, I finally understood the roller coaster of what was going on, of me blowing up and bottling things up and trying to make it work. And I just finally I understood, and I saw that there were things that I could do to change my situation and to restore the intimacy in my marriage and to save my marriage and to not get a divorce, which is what I wanted. It was everything I wanted, and I felt pretty sure that if I tried this, maybe it would work.
So what kinds of things did you see about maybe how you'd been contributing to the problems that you hadn't seen before?
Well, I realized one of the things I did was I made a gratitude list. And one of the things that was on my gratitude list was my dishwasher. I have a new dishwasher, and it is a top of the line dishwasher. And I love my dishwasher. And, when I was looking, I have a journal that I keep now of all the things that I'm grateful for. And sometimes I go back and I review it. And I was thinking about when I had talked to his staff and told them about the problem with the sink not being in for 5 months. I left out, though, the part about I got the best dishwasher in the store because my husband told the salesman that I needed the best dishwasher in the store.
Wow.
And he convinced me that I needed that dishwasher. And I realized how warped my thinking had been. I really started to think differently. And I said, oh my gosh, back then, not only was my thinking warped, I could only see that the sink wasn't done. But I was not able to think that, oh, my husband is so generous that he wanted me to have the best dishwasher. And I never even thought about that. That never even entered my brain. And when I started doing the skills, I started to think differently. I just started to think, what a generous, kind, loving man that I have. And the other thing about that incident with his staff and that dinner is afterwards, he told me that, he kind of saved me in that thing because he said, oh, you don't know what I've been working on while you've been at work all day today. And I said, oh, did you get the sink in? And he said, you'll just have to wait and see until we get home. So he kind of saved me from being the horrible wicked in front of his whole staff. He made me look better. And I hadn't realized that until now, that he really always has my best interest. He always wants to put me in the best light possible. And I never even acknowledged that. I didn't even know that was happening. I didn't even know how mean I was.
Wow. So this actually sounds like kind of a painful insight you're having.
It really is. And I realized I had so many things to apologize for. I had been so disrespectful for a very, very long time. And I was like, oh my God, will he ever forgive me for all the things that I've ever done?
So you started apologizing.
I did. I started apologizing for being disrespectful. And he would just stare. He would just stare at the TV when I would just come in the room because we weren't talking for a long, long time. And I didn't know if my working on these steps was helping or not. But he'd be watching TV if he was home. And he started being home more often, but he usually had the television on when he was home. And I would just come in there and I'd say, oh, I apologize for being disrespectful when I complained about the kitchen not being done in front of your staff. And then I just turned around and left the room. And I would apologize for a million things. I apologized for telling him how to drive. I apologized for redoing the dishwasher after he'd already done the dishes. I just like, I can 1,000 things. I did so many things that were controlling and demeaning to him. And I tried to apologize for all of them, just like maybe one every other day or something like that for a long, long time. And I didn't think he was listening to me, but I just kept doing it.
So he wasn't responding in any way?
No, he would just stare at the TV like he wasn't even listening.
Wow. So, and how hard was it to get yourself to say those words? I apologize for being
I
disrespectful.
apologize for being disrespectful. Well, they didn't want to come out at first. It seemed like a very awkward thing to say at first. And it didn't seem like he cared that I was disrespectful. It seemed like, or that I was even apologizing. So anyway.
What made you stick with it then? How did you get yourself to keep doing it if you weren't getting a good response and it felt so awkward?
One day, he came in and he said that the dogs had been very disrespectful and they had messed up the bed after I had made it. And I just laughed and I thought, oh, he had been listening. And not only had he been listening, but he was using humor with me and he was trying to make me laugh. And that was the man that I fell in love with. And that's the guy who he is. And so it was just his way of saying that I forgive you.
Oh my gosh. So inside, were you just like jumping up and down and like,
I just felt a peace. I just felt this peace. I was jumping up and down, but mostly I just felt like, oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. We're not like all the way there yet, but I just had these little steps along the way, these little indications along the way that it was just going to get better. And some days I was in utter despair, but I would just really focus on taking care of myself and making sure that I was the happy person that he fell in love with, and that he felt successful because I was happy, because all he wants is to make me happy, and all he wants is to be successful at making me happy.
So, and along those lines, I think during your Cold War, you decided to express a desire.
I did. One of the things I did was I would go into the room where he was and I would read. And I had these sore leg muscles one day. And I thought, oh man, I wish I could have a massage and my legs are so sore. And then I thought, oh, this is a great time to express a desire. So I just looked up from my book as I was reading it and I said, I would love a leg massage. And then I looked back down at my book and I didn't expect anything to happen at all because there was no touching and nothing, And he was at his computer and and I just didn't even think he was going to hear me. And then he leaps up from the chair at the computer. He says, would you like it? Would you like a leg massage now?
Wow.
And I thought, oh, wow, these skills really do work.
And he gave you a leg massage right then?
He did. He gave me a leg massage right then.
And there had been no touching and no talking.
No, we hadn't talked in a really long time. And I would just come in there and be really quiet and I would just come in there and read while he was in there.
Wow.
Just thinking, well, I'm just doing this day after day, just being here and he's not responding. And then I just thought, well, I'll express a desire. And it seemed like a really outrageous desire, like a really far reach,
Oh, yeah. So was it scary to say it?
It was, but at that point, I just thought, what the heck? What could go wrong? I mean, you could just ignore me like everything else, like, who cares?
Wow. And so at what point did you reached out to our campus at some point? When was that along the...
May.
Okay.
So this all started at the beginning of March, I would think. And then I reached out at the end of May. So it was like 3 to 4 months from the very beginning. And then once I got into the Ridiculously Happy Wife program, I felt not so alone. I really felt like there was a lot of other women and a lot of support, so that on those days when I had desperation and I thought, oh my gosh, this will never end, I would see someone else's success. And that would give me the hope that I could keep going and keep trying these skills and that eventually they would work because so many other people that I was contacting, I had contact with in the Facebook group, so many other people had a good experience and had success and eventually regained their intimacy. And other people in the world had husbands who didn't want to have sex with them. And I thought I was the only one, and I wasn't. So I was really relieved, really like, okay. And they got past it and they got a better relationship than what they had before. And it gave me a lot of hope. I thought, well, and some people had stories and it took a really long time. And so I realized it was worth it. I didn't care how long it was going to take.
You were committed.
I was committed and I really wanted to be a better version of myself because I was kind of a yucky version before.
Wow. So, and how long did it take before you got your miracle?
Oh, I think it was the end of August, something like that. So like March, April, May, June, July. So like 5 months, 4 months, 4 or 5 months.
Wow. And you had an intention, you had kind of a vision for what you wanted your marriage to be like. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I just had this picture in my head of us sitting in the back patio doing nothing because he was really busy and I was really busy. And it seemed like we were always just running around and we were, even after we started, talking and had intimacy and stuff, we just didn't have any quiet time together where we were just at peace, just the two of us. So I had a vision of us just sitting in the backyard on the patio where the sun's going down at the end of a long day. And then, like 2 weeks ago, my husband started digging a hole in the backyard. And I was thinking, well, we have a lot of stuff going on. Why is he digging a hole in the backyard? So it turned out he was digging a hole for a fire pit. So he made a fire pit in the backyard. And I was thinking, well, why on earth would you put a fire pit in the backyard? What good does that do me? I can't go back there. The patio's a mess and I can't walk out there and what's going on there? But I just didn't say anything. And he seemed to want me to watch him do it. So I would be in the dining room looking out the window and I waved to him and say, hi. You're digging a hole.
Imagine my excitement. But you weren't complaining either.
I didn't complain. I just smiled and waved, And then one day he came in, he was done and he'd built a fire pit and he said, well, this motivates me to get the patio cleaned off. And I was like, wow, that's really great. Because now he's going to clean the patio. Well, then a few days went by and the patio wasn't clean. And then I don't know, a few days went by and then he did clean the patio. And then he came to get me and he built a huge fire in the fire pit and he put some chairs up for me and invited me out to sit on the back patio with him and look at the fire. And then I was talking to one of my partner coaches and she's asking me about my vision. And it dawned on me that was my vision. My vision came true for my marriage. It was it's the craziest vision. Let's sit on the back patio doing nothing. And I didn't think it would ever happen because it was a total disaster of a mess. And he was too busy, but It happened. And I sat there and I thought, my miracle happened. My vision happened. Wow.
Wow. And you didn't have the fireplace in your vision. So it's it kind of
it was better.
It was better than what you imagined.
Yeah.
So what's your relationship like now?
Well, he is just so helpful all the time. He helps me with my technical things so I can be in the class. He cooks. I don't worry if something's going to get done or not get done. I have so many skills I can fall back on, and I'm just so happy. I'm so happy, and I think he's happy because I'm happy.
Wow! And the sex is back.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, and you get to sit at in front of the fire with him in the evenings, like you like. So, if you could go back in time and talk to Debbie from before, Debbie now could talk to Debbie before, what would you say to yourself?
I would say a gratitude list. Do a gratitude list, and so that you can remember all the good things and think about all the good things that your beloved is doing for you. Because I couldn't believe when I look back at that list and I look at all the wonderful things that he's so generous, he's so loving. I'll sit down and he'll get me a drink, and it's not just, he goes out of his way to make it a really special drink. He'll do seltzer with ice and a lime and squeezes lime in there and a straw. He goes the extra mile to make me happy. And I think I didn't ever notice any of those things before, and I notice them now. And so I would tell my old self, notice those things. No, and thank him for that. And that will be the thing that really makes both of you happy.
Beautiful. And now you've trained to become a coach. You're in process of becoming a coach now. So give us a tip. What is your best tip for a woman who maybe has a husband who says he doesn't love her, she's not attractive, he wants a divorce, and she wants to create what you've created, where her husband's making her special drinks and inviting her to sit by the fire, and the sex is back, and the leg massages are back, and he's taking care of her technical support, and she's happy again. Where should she start? What should she do?
Well, I think starting with taking care of yourself and focusing on yourself is the best thing. I started by reading books. I hadn't read a novel in a really long time. I got myself a massage. I got a facial. These were all things that were really frivolous and just like way out there. I bought myself flowers. I would go and I would really kind of think about things that I had never thought of before, like what makes me happy? And I always thought those things were like just frivolous and not needed and extravagant, and really they are necessary for my very core to just be a happy self that somebody else can love. Otherwise, I am grouchy and critical, and it just allowed me to let go of trying to manage my husband's life and just stay out of his business, and let him figure out how he wants to do what he needs to do. And I could just be happy regardless of what he was doing.
Well, I love that. And you told me a story about even planning a vacation with your daughters. And so tell us about that. That was part of your self-care.
I did. I thought, I want to go to the beach. And I thought, this is way too extravagant. And then it just kept coming up on my list of desires, because I would write down, what do I want to do? I had this list of 20 things for self-care. And that was kind of at the top of my list, was to go to the beach and rent a beach house with a view of the oceanfront view and everything like that. And I thought it was so extravagant. And one day I just said, it was very stressful. This was during our stressful period. When
there's a Cold War.
There's a Cold War. We're not having sex, and I just don't know what to do.
You're afraid your marriage might end.
Yeah, and I thought I even thought there was a part of me that says, should I really go away for a weekend? And but I just said, this is something that I really, really is deep inside me, a deep, deep thing that I feel like I need to do. And so I scheduled a trip with my daughters at Depot Bay, and it was right on the ocean, and we had a balcony right over the ocean. And when we got there, there were whales that lived there all the time. And right off this place where the condo was. And it was just life-changing, because it really restored my spirit. Really, really just made me feel so good. It was worth every penny. And being with my daughters was really wonderful. We did puzzles. We just did all really boring things, and looked at whales. And that's all we did. Painted our nails, did facials,
And that saved your marriage.
It did.
Yeah.
And it was just so silly that something could be that easy, could, just like by doing what I wanted to do, could be so instrumental in saving my marriage.
Well, Debbie, it's an amazing story of going from having your husband say he wants a divorce to building a fireplace and cleaning the patio and asking you to come sit with him, making you fancy drinks. And it sounds like your marriage is now a source of confidence. Do you feel confident about?
I do. I feel very confident. I'm not worried that he's gonna like suddenly come home one day and say, I'm not happy. I just don't worry about that anymore, ever.
Wow. So. Well, phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. It's very personal stuff. And I guess I just want to ask why you'd be willing to share all this stuff that you felt so embarrassed about, but now you're happy to talk about it in kind of a public way. So why are you willing to do that?
I really believe in marriage, and I really want to give hope to other women who want to save their marriages, that you can do this. It's very concrete skills. A lot of other skills are just kind of like up there in the ether, and they're kind of theoretical skills. These are really practical skills with really concrete instructions, and I followed them and it worked. And I think that these steps can work for you as well. These skills can work for any woman who wants to save their marriage.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Debbie. This has been great.
You're welcome.
If you're wondering how to get started with fixing your relationship and making it shiny again, then you need a roadmap. Get 6 simple steps to follow that will set your relationship up for success. Discover 3 common mistakes that wives make trying to fix their relationship that just make things worse when you download my free Adored Wife Roadmap. You can do that at getcherished.com. Go to getcherished.com now to get your roadmap in minutes. And now it's time for the Worst Relationship Advice of the Week award.
It's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice. Yeah, it's the worst relationship advice of the worst relationship advice of the week.
And the advice that's got me steamed this week is from a listener and ridiculously happy wife student who said that her counselor told her, you can't work on your marriage until your husband ends his relationship with his affair partner. And that just makes me boil because it's so disempowering. Here's what this student says about it. There are marriage counseling steps 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And number 1 is end the affair. So you can't work on number 2, etc. until you've gotten past number 1. I heard that statement from our counselor for 6 solid months. And then I found your book 2 months ago. Yay, no longer going to the counselor. She says, my husband still lives separated from me. He still sees his affair partner sometimes, but I'm experiencing more wins every week. He took me out to eat for my birthday last week. He slipped and said, honey, one day before he quickly covered it up. And his affair partner moved 40 minutes farther away recently. I'm trying to overcome my control and helpful behaviors that I had no idea were disrespectful. And I'm trying to receive gifts graciously, like telling him thank you when he fixes my toilet, my car battery, my hot water heater, etc. And after my birthday supper last week, he texted me, thanks, I had fun. My marriage counselor would have a fit that a husband would say that to his wife while he still has an affair partner. But you would totally get it. Thank you, Laura. I do get it. And what a huge distraction that must have been from the things that you could have been doing to fix your relationship, which you are now doing. And I see that you're incredibly courageous and committed to your marriage, which I admire very much. And I'm so happy to hear that the lousy advice didn't keep you stuck and you realized you had the power all along, just like Dorothy. Congratulations on your wins. Sounds like you're on the right track to create the kind of reconciliation you're wanting. And we'll all be doing our happy dance for you on our campus when that reconciliation is complete. So thanks for sending in this worst relationship advice. which would only make things worse for so many marriages with affairs and cause so much needless emotional turmoil for everyone. For that reason, the advice that you can't work on your marriage until your husband ends his affair is the worst relationship advice I've heard all week. Listen and subscribe to the Empowered Wife podcast. Next week, I'll be sharing the best thing to do when your husband says he doesn't love you or he never loved you. I hope you're having lots of fun. Today's fun fact is that while some people would say I have very fair skin, I prefer to think of myself as pigment challenged.